Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this, a circuit that everybody knows here in West Virginia. Summit Point will play host to the 11th round of this, the Radicals Racing League Challenge. And well, this will be happening here on RaceSpotTV and on iRacingLive as part of your RaceSpotTV primetime. RaceSpotTV primetime rolls into week 11 out of a possible 12. Your votes decide which series gets shown here on a Friday night, and well, your votes decided that the Radical SR8 would be the car that would take to the track around a true racer circuit, shall we say, in West Virginia, known as Summit Point Raceway, as we are streaming live on iRacingLive, brought to you by RaceSpotTV. We're currently in the middle of qualifying right now. And well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am #DoYouMind Jake Sperry, joined alongside, as ever, by Mr. Connery Maddock. Will Vincent's away? Well, it seems that the lovable duo will come along and play. Qualifying underway. Adria Perez fastest at the moment, Connery.
Yep, exactly. And Tim Bertie, your current championship leader, only second place right now. And in fact, he has completed all of his qualifying laps. So second place is the best position. He will be starting from the grid at the moment. And I kind of want to just go back to something you said at the top of the on the top of the broadcast, Jake. This is a track that everyone on the iRacing service knows. These guys know what is the fastest way around this track. They've been doing it ever since the rookie series here in iRacing. It's your first introduction into road racing, and well, this should be a fantastic race as a result.
It certainly will be. They brand this circuit on the back of your hand. If you don't remember how this circuit goes, well, you can forget about being a racing driver. So, qualifying underway, Hayata Asaga will come to the line. He'll only go P15 on a 107.539, so not good enough for him as things happen in terms of what is going on there. So, Connery, when you look at the battling that does happen around a circuit like Summit Point, how do you feel that drivers are going to be dealing with everything in the coming races?
I'm not entirely sure about this one. This one is kind of be a mixed bag, this track, because it's such a narrow circuit in places because you don't really have all that much runoff. Because as soon as you go offline at most places around this track, you're either in the dirt or you're in the grass. So it's not really all that much margin for error. I think people, at least initially at the start of the race, will just fall in line and then see how the race goes from there.
They certainly will, and that might be something to keep an eye out on here right now as we're watching the number 18 machine plodding around Connery. Connery, what are the sorts of characteristics that you see out of this Radicals SR8?
Well, first of all, it's light. Only 650 kilograms, plus there's a V8 in the back of that thing as well, so it's light, nimble, and very, very quick as well. And it's a real driver's car, as we see Randy Shoemaker coming around to complete what will be his outlap here, I believe, because, well, he has not set a competitive lap time just yet. He is one of 4 drivers that have not set a lap time yet, and those include Coldo Gomez, Randy Shoemaker, this driver you're watching right now, Dylan McKenna, and Ricardo Pinheiro as well. As we just ride on board with Randy Shoemaker, in fact, coming across the line, he will just head his way down towards the first corner. This is the heaviest braking zone on the track pretty much, as it's almost a right-hand hairpin, as he just does not quite make the apex there. That'll cost him a couple of tenths at least as he makes his way up towards the turn number 3 right now. Just a little bit of a lift here, maybe a dab on the brakes as he just drags it all the way to the apex there. Careful of not tracking out too much though coming out of there, because you can get into the gravel relatively quickly. Now this is the right-hand kink of turn 4 before the heavy braking zone of turn 5. And now this section that's coming up is so tight and twisty. We might see some good two-wide running coming through here. Again, he misses the apex of turn 6. But he manages to get a decent exit though, coming through the SS section of turn 8 and turn 9. It's pretty scruffy apex of turn 8 though, coming into turn number 9. And then it's only a short run now down under the bridge, down towards the final corner. He will have enough time to get this lap in. He can take a little bit of the track exit here, but decides not to. So maybe that's a little bit of a compromise run there from Shoemaker. Let's see what lap time he gets this time by. Yeah, it is only good enough for a 1 minute 8.4. That puts him on the back of the grid, 17th place of those that have set a time, Jake.
Yes, it is, and that's not the best of laps from Randy Shoemaker, but he gets himself above 3 other vehicles. Let's take ourselves then over to the starting grid. This is how your field looks. Adria Perez will get himself on pole position, a 104.068. He is a full 0.3 of a second quicker than the championship leader, Tim Bertie, in second. Bergmani second in the championship, P3 on the grid, with Rudolf Nagel alongside. Lauren Devane and Dennis Andlauer there in 5th and 6th. Marcus Volmuth there in 7th with Jake Donald 8th. Peter Leonard will start 9th with Isaac Olive in 10th position. UC Machias Butler there in 11th position with Lucas Dolza, Miguel Garcia Sanchez and Niels Weiss in 13th and 14th. Ayata Saga with Chris Bowman, Randy Shoemaker, Coldo Gonzalez Gomez, Dylan McKenna and Ricardo Pinheiro. Well, a 2-minute grid to get yourself going. One of the key features of this circuit, pit lane is actually before the start-finish line here. So in theory, you can pit on the final lap, get yourself back out again and going here. So that's something just to keep an eye out. Waiting on one driver. Isaac Olive is yet to take himself up onto the grid. Turn 1 will always be a very difficult challenge around here. It's tight, it's narrow, it's always too wide at best, but this sort of circuit is here to promote close racing, door-to-door racing that we have seen. And already on Friday primetime over the past 11 weeks prior to this, we have seen some sensational races here from the circuit of Summit Point. Adria Perez, worth noting, will have inside, but the engine notes now. Getting ready. Let's get a green light, because we're ready to go, and we are underway at Summit Point. A good start from Adria Perez, no less than what you would expect. Single file, it will go for the moment. Side by side in the middle of your pack is Andlauer, under pressure from Volmuth into turn number 1. They come along for the very first time, and well, 2 wide they're going to go. Are we all clean through the very first section? Answer is going to be yes, we are all clean. Going through, 1 car starts from pit road. That is Jake Donald. They're still side by side behind, but they back out of it into 3 as Andlauer and Volmuth then get themselves nose to tail here, Connery.
Oh, instant in the back of your field. In fact, that was number 12 of Isaac Olive, just having a little bit of trouble getting himself into turn 3, and went too wide on the entry to the corner is going to be the cause of that one, Jake. Just taking the grass on the outside of the corner and just didn't manage to make the apex.
No, and this is one of the key characteristics of the circuit. Once you push a little bit too hard, the limit comes along very, very quickly. So that will be something just to keep in mind. At the front of your field, Adria Perez hasn't broken away. Tim Bertie is very happy just to sit here. Worth also keeping an eye out on is the ability to slipstream and draft in these vehicles, Connery, because Tim Bertie here is within about half a second and can really close down that gap at 255 kilometers an hour on the brakes.
Yeah, but he's going to close it up, but not close enough to make a move early on, coming down onto lap 2 into turn number 1. So this is a 2-car breakaway now at the front. Adrita Perez, Tim Bertie, Joachim Mani is just going to be there or thereabouts and trying to pull a gap off of Rudolf Nagel, which is in that 4th place position right now as they head themselves down into turn number 5. Looking back through your field, though, there's decent 3-car train going on for 12th places. Randy Shoemaker, Marcus Wolmuth, and Hayata Asaga. Asaga having issues on the first lap, getting a slowdown penalty, letting a stream of cars by him.
Yes, and now he'll need to try and make that recovery drive. Will Asaga, they could see Shoemaker now having a little bit of pressure as Volmuth, who has dropped a long way down this field, will now need to try and make those positions back up. Shoemaker just managed to shut the door quick enough there through that infield section, you could argue. Closer getting to the final corner. You don't often make a move here, but when moves are necessary, you certainly can get them tucked in underneath the toe. Moving to the inside is the driver of Marcus Volmuth on the right-hand side of the circuit, and he'll get the move done before they get to turn number 1. Asaga now will make a late move down to the inside and took that one very, very cleanly. You saw also from Volmuth, he took a little bit of the grass out as well, and he is lucky on the brakes there, Connery, that he didn't spin that car around with the lack of traction.
Yeah, we've already seen a driver that wasn't so lucky with the grass on the entry to the corner, and that was actually coming down to turn 3 rather than to turn 1, but the same point is made. Randy Shoemaker has lost 2 positions in one braking zone pretty much, and he's losing the back of these guys pretty quickly as well, as Asaga tries to follow Volvo through all of the rest of these cars, trying to get himself back up there. Looking back towards the front though, Rita Perez and Tim Bertie still together. They set pretty much identical lap times last time by a 104.833 for your leader and 104.812 for Tim Bertie, and that is going to be around about a 10th of a second advantage to Adrita Perez coming across the line, but there's not much to separate these guys.
There isn't, and of course this is only a 25-minute race, so in terms of 25 minutes, Bertie's got to get onto the back and do the job quickly. Jürgen Manni actually running a lap time that's only 0.02 of a second quicker than Tim Bertie. He won't be able to close that gap down of just about 1 second here, just getting the fringes of the draft around the circuit. Not really a circuit where top speed is pretty much available and openly accessible, Connery. It's going to be about who has the best downforce package, and especially in a car with a good weight to power ratio as the Radical, it's about how you actually set up this car to go through the corners.
Yeah, exactly. The only sort of low downforce section is that very long pit straight that we have here at Summit Point, but the rest of the corners are pretty much medium speed corners and very slow speed corners, so you might be more advised to set up the car, like you said, for the higher downforce sections of the racetrack and suffer a little bit down the straight. I don't think it'll hurt these guys too much. I think these guys will be thinking more about that run coming out the final corner though, because that can pay dividends if you get it right, and Asaga tried it just now, that number 8 machine on Wolmuth, but Wolmuth managing to get himself a good run coming out of the last corner as well, as they're very close for head for P8, 9, and 10. This is UC Butler, Miguel Sanchez, and Lucas Dolce all fighting for position.
They are here, and you see Macias Butler then just holding on the advantage. Sanchez under a bit of pressure. Dolza now will look to try and apply the pressure onto the back of the driver of Miguel Garcia Sanchez. Sanchez taking the middle of the road there. You can use a little bit more, and you can sometimes see around this circuit that there are areas of concrete or areas of tarmac, shall we say, that are a lot lighter patch than other areas of the circuit. That can sometimes be used as a driver as a visual cue. That's the racing line. That's where I have to be really utilizing this circuit and attacking it. But let's get a graphic up on your screen of your biggest movers and shakers inside your top 10. The top 5 have stayed absolutely the same. No movements at all. And it's only when you look further back, the likes of Miguel Sanchez here up 4 positions. Lucas Dolza up 2 positions. UC Butler here up 3 positions here, Connery. The mistakes have been happening outside the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, just to correct you there, Jay, he's going to be down to the top 6 as we see Lucas Dolzer actually having a bit of an oversteer moment coming out of turn number 1. That's the number 5 machine. That's just going to drop him off the back of Miguel Sanchez just a little bit. But we still have the vast majority of this race to go, so he has enough time to recover from that mistake. But as you said, indeed, most of the incidents that we've seen have happened outside of that top 6. to the likes of Marcus Wolmuth, Isaac Olive, Jake Donald, and Ricardo Pinheiro. Pinheiro actually did not take the race start.
No, he didn't. Adria Perez last time by set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:04.596, only half a second off, and issues going on as well there, Connery. So an incident has occurred.
Yeah, it's number 18 coming down. Randy Shoemake coming down into the turn 5 section, the turn 5 left-hand hairpin, and just slid the car all the way through the apex. And, well, then he ended up spinning on the exit of the corner, pointed in the complete wrong direction with traffic coming. He had to wait there for just a little bit for all of the rest of the traffic to come by. And then he spun it back around, did a 180, and then kept going. But that's just one of those things you have to sort of... When you get stranded on the side of the racetrack like that, you have to rejoin safely, and that is what Randy Shoemake did, even though it has lost him about 20 seconds.
It has, and that won't be good for Randy Shoemake. He now is half a minute even off of the pace as things stand of your race leaders. Adria Perez just has gone back-to-back purple lap times, and he's only gone 0.06 of a second quicker this time by. So Adria Perez trying to break the driver of Tim Bertie. Bertie, though, not relinquishing this, only 0.8 of a second behind that last lap. Going to cross the line and do himself a 1:04.586, and that in itself is the fastest lap of the race then for the driver of Tim Bertie. But guess who is checking out with a 1:05.501? Jürgen Manni is not going to let this one go. Although his lap time is quicker, it won't be classified as the fastest lap, Connery, because of the fact that he's had an off-track somewhere.
Yeah, and that's exactly how the iRacing system works. It works in qualifying by invalidating your lap in the race, though. If you get a fastest lap while having some sort of incident point on track, then, well, it's not going to log that as a fastest lap when it comes to the race standings at the end of the race. But Jürgen Manni, he's slowly losing the guys in front, but the gap is kind of fluctuating just a little bit. He's just over 2 seconds behind Tim Bertie at this moment in time, and that's not an insurmountable gap, especially if your two race leaders start fighting. That may bring Jürgen Manni straight back into the fight for the race win. Meanwhile, just having a little bit of a look down your field, there's a decent train going on right now for what is the 8th place and back, and actually Miguel Sanchez managed to gain that 8th place last time by, as actually Dennis Aldenauer having an issue coming through the final corner. Number 15 machine dropping back a couple of places. Let's see what has happened here. He seems to have just drifted the car on entry. Late entry was the problem for Aldenauer there, and that is just hit his car, and he's just hit his car into the well, to the side of the tire barrier there. Not too much damage to the bodywork of that Radical SR8, but he'll keep going. But again, he's lost a lot of time now.
Lap oversteer for him, and he drops a number of positions. Lucas Dolzer trying to get past UC Machias Butler, acting as the very difficult anchor for the passing tides that we are seeing here. The likes of Dolzer, Weiss, Volmuth, all there together. Oh, a big late move then, trying to go from Marcus Volmuth. Volmuth wasn't, well, not even Volmuth, Weiss even there was trying to make that move. It didn't quite work for Weiss, who is already up 4 positions in this race. Worth noting, we have only lost 2 drivers in, well, 3 drivers technically in this event. Pinheiro didn't take the start, but Isaac Olive and Jake Donald are both out of the event. Gap at the front now 9/10 of a second. Dolzer, Weiss, the likes of UC Butler here, all together, all scrapping it out, Connery. And when you're in that middle train, that middle pack, you have to be so careful about the way that you drive this vehicle, because you might get into a situation where you can drop 4 or 5 positions in the blink of an eye. It's only 25 minutes, and the element of urgency is there as UC Butler takes a very unconventional line through turn 1.
Yeah, but he's going to survive it, though, and what you've just said, where you make one mistake and you could see 3 or 4 cars down your inside, you're losing 3 or 4 positions. That really only applies if you're at the front of this train, but again, it's very, very, that's something your drivers have to be concerned about right now. Just don't push too much. Try not to make any mistakes, otherwise you will just have 3 or 4 cars down your inside, and there's not really all that much you can do about that. But this train is keeping together relatively well. The 2 at the front are trying to break away Miguel Sanchez and UC Butler, and Lucas Dolzer and Niels Weiss is trying to follow them, but those 2 are breaking away at the front. This pack is breaking, well, almost down the middle, but that would only be if we have 4 cars instead of 5.
Yes, it would here, and that 4-car train then continues on that battle. Sanchez under pressure, UC Butler back in underneath, under the toe. Will look to the inside into turn number 1. The prime overtaking opportunity, and he'll get there a lot quicker on the brakes. Will take that unconventional inside line, try and hold up the driver in the mid part of the corner, get the best amount of exit out of turn number 1. Everyone else seems to take the conventional out line that you normally see from an Apex, Connery. That's worth noting here from UC Butler. He takes the line differently. He's more experimental, maybe, shall we say, and that unpredictability can be a factor that can unsettle a couple of drivers.
Yeah, there can be a couple of lines through that those first and second corners right there, and UC Butler has definitely explored those options to try and get himself in front, as he is a huge tank slapper coming out of this low section, and he's going to clip the grass as well. And Sanchez has to be careful here. So does Lucas Dolce. They're both going to make their way by him. Dolce may have an opportunity on Sanchez coming into the final corner, but no, he's just going to back out of it. And that's exactly what you said, Jake. One mistake, and you've lost 2 positions as Butler has done. He's going to lose another one coming down the pit straight.
He is side by side. Butler under pressure then from Volmuth. Volmuth will make the move, but Dolzer will try around the outside just in front of that. Sanchez had nothing there and just lifted off the brakes early. Butler's still going to try and fight it on the outside though behind that, but in the end the move will get conceded here to Marcus Volmuth. So Dolzer up through, Volmuth up through, both of them doing a sensational job of making those overtakes then in the mid part of your event. We are only 12 minutes into this one, and there's more battles going on, like Rudolf Nagel versus Laurent Deven here, Connery. 4th and 5th here, split by just 1.4 seconds. Deven's not out of this one here. As we said, it might just be a case of mistakes can happen. I mean, look to the driver of, say, what was going to be the driver that had that incident earlier on this event from 6th position. Can't remember the name right now. But incidents happen incredibly quickly around here. Dennis Andlau is the name I'm trying to find. Andlau's out to the event now. It can be as easy as that.
Yeah, and actually battling side by side coming out the final corner. This was the 6 and the 17, Miguel Sanchez and Wolmuth. Sanchez managed to make his way by, but here comes the reply coming down into the braking zone from Wolmuth, and he's going to make his move done on the brakes, or so we suspect. He still took that inside line, even though he could have perhaps drifted out and took a more optimal line through there. Wolmuth is back through, shall we say, on Miguel Sanchez, as these guys, I think, will be dicing right until the end here.
They will be, and that will be in case there isn't an incident. So Garcia Sanchez then just sitting on the outside. Difficult turn number 4, flat out before hitting the brakes. And the car is incredibly unsettled before you hit onto the brakes, especially down into a difficult turn number 5, one of the slowest corners on the circuit. And it actually acts like a bowl around here, Connery, when you get offline, because the circuit slopes away from you. There's quite a bit of elevation change off the circuit, but on the circuit it doesn't feel like there's too much. As we see Volmuth now look to try and get to the front of the train with Lucas Dolzer. Dolzer's got nothing on the outside, it doesn't seem, but will be able to get a better run after the exit because he pinched the man to the curb. There's 1 position, and now look at Garcia trying to make it 2. Let's go thread the needle.
Here he goes. He's going to have to be forced around the outside of those. Lucas Dolce does take that defensive inside line. Will we see the dive from Wolmuth, though? As actually Wolmuth's going to take it side by side with Sanchez. Wolmuth power sliding through the middle of the corner. Manages to save it, though. You have to remember, UC Macias Butler is behind here, able to capitalize on any mistake that these guys make, but he's not going to. Wolmuth is just going to get hit away with that power slide through turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, he is able to get that power slide away, but how much power is on that? The answer would be very little. He lost a position through it now on the brakes onto the outside line. He'll try and track to open up the inside of the corner. You're always setting up as he turns around, actually does Volmuth, and that is there on pressure, and they have an incident ahead there. Vice tags UC Butler there, so 2 big moments in the space of 1 corner. And that was just a case of trying to get onto the power of the corner. It's always turning to the right, to the left even, Connery, as they head through that section. So for Butler, he just, not even Butler, for Volmuth, he just finds himself turning around there, just putting the power on too early, and with everyone checking up, Vice just tags the back then of the driver of Butler. A big incident then on lap 14.
Yeah, that incident isn't really surprising. Coming out a slow speed corner, trying to get the power down in such a light car with such a powerful engine is always going to spell trouble, and that is what we have seen from Vormuth. As I'm having a look back at that incident between Butler and Niels Weiss, and yeah, Niels Weiss just completely misjudged the closing speed as Butler was very close to the apex there, coming through the end of the slow section, and both cars as a result have damaged. Niels Weiss perhaps suffering a little bit more than the other driver right there. Meanwhile, Dolce versus Sanchez is still going on as they head their way out of turn number 6, number 7 as well here. Sanchez needs a good run out of the final corner if he wants to make a move coming down into turn number 1, or he's going to get a good move here coming out the S's section. We never know. Maybe he's going to dive one down the inside of the final corner, but no, he decides to file in behind right now, and let's see what he does on the exit of the corner. Doesn't take a wider line out as Dolce does, but he is going to get the run, he's going to get the draft, and Dolce's going to take that defensive inside line. Sanchez is going to have to be forced around the outside here like he did a couple of laps ago, but Dolce's going to defend that corner entry. Does he defend the corner exit though? That is the question. Yes, he does.
He does defend the corner exit to Lucas Dolce, now putting on a resilient defense. They are, the pair of them, 13 seconds off of Peter Leonard in the 10 machine, who's up from 9th to 6th position. These two drivers are +5 for their day so far. Worth talking about the front of the field. Adria Perez has just checked out of the battling hotel, and he will drive himself down Leaders Boulevard as he now holds himself a 1.7 second lead
more
over
issues,
the driver
Jake.
Tim Bertie, and more issues, Connery.
Yeah, it's Butler and Wormuth. They've had an incident coming down into turn number 3. This is going to be, and well, I think you have to pin the blame on this one on UC Butler. I think Wormuth was as close to that inside line as possible, almost right in the curb, yet UC Butler still moved his car across his nose, giving no racing room at all, and that has ended in an incident for both of those drivers.
I disagree with you, Connery. I think UC Butler got the call of you are clear onto the inside, took to the inside, and Vormuth maybe leaving the car a little bit dangling on that inside, maybe could have backed out a little bit more. There's a lot of potential for debate on that one. So in terms of who's at blame, no comment. That's the way that settles most arguments on this. Lucas Dolce versus Miguel Sanchez still going on for 7th and 8th. It's the biggest battle in the field at the moment here, as the other drivers aren't really too close. But it is also worth talking about the battle between P4, P5 here, Connery, because that gap has come down to 0.8 of a second between Rudolf Nagel and Laurent Devane.
Yeah, it came down by about 0.9 of a second last time by. Let's see what it is this time by, however. That's a 105.5 for Nagel and a 105.6 for Devan, who's in that P5 position. So a huge gain 2 laps ago, not as much as a gain last time by, but the overall trend is that Devan is catching Rudolf Nagel at the moment, and we may see a fight for P4 relatively soon.
Yeah, we are looking towards the final 5 minutes, and talk about the final 5 minutes. Tim Bertie just closed down the gap of about 7/10 in that last lap. Randy Shoemake was the driver that the two had to get past, shall we say. And Adria Perez just ran into a bit of traffic difficulties here. Wasn't very easy to make that happen. Actually, as you say that, Tim Bertie gets a big moment coming out at turn number 9. Had a huge correction to be made, and that will pretty much drop him out of the equation for the race victory here. 1.1 seconds was the gap. Well, one small mistake, one small tank slapper, 1.1 seconds lost.
Yep, exactly. And as we just have a look back to Peter Leonard, actually, I believe that was... No, it was not. In fact, it may have been Sanchez that was making some moves on my timing screen right there. And yes, this was making his way down the inside at turn 5 as well. Lucas Dolce just pushing wide, not getting the car stopped in time for the apex. And, well, Miguel Sanchez says, hello, I'm taking this inside line, and he's through.
Yeah, these cars are very difficult to drive. They're very lightweight, only 600 kilograms. So you hope that in the morning, that extra bit of porridge you can just sort of scrimp on in terms of trying to get the best weight on for the driving that you got. You can also argue here, Connery, it's like a shoebox on wheels, except the shoebox has a V8 engine and has a massive spoiler on the back and is incredibly difficult to drive.
And let's just ignore the shoebox is big enough for a person to fit in it.
Yes, a shoebox is big enough for a person to fit in. Depends on how big the shoe is. Rudolf Nagel, though, and Laurent Devane still battling on here in the battle for P4, P5 out on circuit. The best of the rest in terms of the podium. 20 minutes, 38 seconds here means that there is just 4 minutes left on the clock to battle, and the gap between these two is 0.8 of a second here, Connery. Rudolph maybe is making himself very, very calmly in the situation, because although I say he's making himself calmly, he is just trying to maintain that gap, make sure that Laurent doesn't have any sort of momentum to try and make a scrap for in the final couple of laps.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is the case here. Devan does have the benefit of the draft coming all the way down the pit straight. Actually, he's going to close up on the brakes. Yeah, huge amount coming down into turn 5. Outbrakes himself a little bit. You saw a puff of smoke from that left front tire, but that is just how much Laurent Devan wants this P4 at the moment. And, well, he needs to not do that quite as much coming into the final few laps of this race, as he has actually lost time as a result when he was looking to gain it. Let's see what it is this time by as they come through the final corner. Regal having a tiny bit of a slide coming through there. Nagel's just going to go across the line as actually race lead. Rita Perez has had an off.
Oh, Adria Perez has run into issues then. Let's take a look at that one. And that is a self-spin at turn number 1. Too lazy on the brakes, trying to turn himself down in towards turn number 1. And the car was always going to loop around there. That's the case of trail braking. You can't turn when you hit the brakes on this vehicle. Otherwise, the car is going to chew you out and spit you away. And for the championship leader, Tim Bertie, that's perfect news. Adria Perez now behind. He now gets an extra position on Jurg Manny on one of the strongest fields that the Radicals team will be racing all season long. And that is a race lead and potentially a race victory thrown away for Adria Perez.
Yeah, exactly. Adria Perez isn't in this championship fight. In fact, he hasn't done enough races to make himself qualify for a championship winner at this stage in the season. So late on in the season, round 11 in fact. So we've got this round and just one more round to go until the championship is decided. And Tim Bertie is, as you said, that championship leader at the moment and will remain to be if he finishes so high up during this race right now. It's 3.2 seconds between himself and Rita Perez. With how fast Rita Perez is, even though he is that quick, I don't think 3.2 seconds is a surmountable gap with 1 minute and 40 seconds remaining. Meanwhile, we're just going to have a little look back throughout your field as the battles have spread out a little bit coming onto the final couple of laps during this race after a relatively entertaining first around about 80% of the race.
Yeah, it has been very entertaining, of course. The gaps sort themselves out after a little while, so there will be a little bit of happiness off of the end of this. Laurent Devane here, still not able to close down to Rudolf Nagel here. That gap opens up to about 1.2 seconds and will not look like it will close any further for the driver of Tim Bertie, though. He will make his drive over the start-finish line then, and he will set his time then of 23 minutes 56 seconds. I believe that is just enough for one more lap. It might be two. It depends on how the flagman actually gets himself into play. Actually, Adria Perez under a lot of pressure now from Jurg Manny there, so not able to get himself back going. Worth checking out Adria Perez, see if there is any damage on that vehicle, and it doesn't look like there's anything external that seems to be an issue. Maybe internally there might be a little bit of trouble. This should be the final lap, but there might be potential for it to not be. It depends when Tim Bertie gets himself across the line. Perez holding on to things at the moment, doing a very good job of things just to maintain that gap. Jurg Manny needed to get this position to try and curb the gap, but unfortunately it's not going to be too close enough. Tim Bertie, though, he will look to try and round the final corner. The question is going to be, is this going to be the final lap of the event? He rounds that final corner. It will be the final lap, and Tim Bertie will weave across the line because he takes a very good victory in the way that only Tim Bertie can at the circuit of Summit Point. Adria Perez, for all of the great driving he's done, one small mistake and the race was handed over to Bertie. Jurg Manny, second in the championship, third overall, Connery.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, the racing may not be done just yet. As a couple of other drivers still have yet to come across the line. And there's actually a battle going on that track. This is between two drivers. This is between Chris Bowman and Marcus Wolmuth. Wolmuth having the huge amount of issues during the course of the middle part of the race. He has an opportunity to gain another position here to try and, well, try and make sort of some sort of recovery drive right here, but I don't think he's going to get it. He's too far back come the final corner, and Bowman is going to take that P11, while Vollmer, after an instant-ridden race, has to settle for 12.
Yeah, he certainly does. And with all drivers across the line now, let's take a look then at your official classified results here from the circuit of Summit Point Raceway. A gift for the driver of Tim Bertie. He takes the win in the final couple of laps away from Adria Perez, who will be kicking himself that he has thrown a race win away. Kurgmani will finish in 3rd position, but won't be able to stop the championship from changing in terms of points. Rudolf Nagel will finish 4th ahead of Laurent Devane, with the driver Peter Leonard coming up from 9th to 6th. Miguel Garcia Sanchez then will finish in 7th, with Lucas Dolzer behind in 8th. Hayata Asaga with a stunning driver, plus 6 positions overall to get to 9th, with Niels Weiss rounding out the top 10. Chris Bowman and Marcus Vollmuth then will round out 11 and 12th. The last of the cast to finish. 7 drivers failed to finish this race. 1 failed to finish on the leading lap. Randy Shoemake, UC Macias Butler, Coldo Gonzalez Gomez, Dylan McKenna, Dennis Andlar, Isaac Olive, Jake Donald, and the driver that failed to start the race, Ricardo Pinheiro. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are just going to step aside for one moment. The post-race show come to you after these few messages. Don't go away. The post-race show after what was a very exciting race in the Radical Racing Challenge. And well, Tim Bertie would come home a race victor after what was maybe a mistake, an unforced error, shall we say, from the driver of Adria Perez. Not what we normally see from a pro stripe driver, but in the end, racing is racing. Jake Sperry, hashtag do you mind, here with Connery Maddock in the commentary booth. Connery, the first thing that comes into mind is that mistake that we saw with Adria Perez was unforced. He was out and away. There was no way that Tim Bertie was going to catch him, but the pressure was put up and Adria Perez crumbled.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, he had the pace pretty much all race. He didn't really have all that much to worry about in terms of Tim Bertie catching him. He was catching a little bit by the end of the race. But in terms of overall pace, Adria Perez had this one in the bag and he bowled it.
He did in the end. And, you know, this circuit has the ability to catch anyone out. And Adria Perez has proved this quite literally. And also the fact that only 12 drivers finished this race. That also is worth noting about how certain drivers are struggling with the fact that this circuit is very tight, it's very technical, and even though it's very basic, you know, when you put a car that has so much top speed and so much potential to go around these corners with a lot of pace, mistakes do add up, especially at a circuit that is so unforgiving as this.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head right there. Even though this is one of the sort of base content packages that are given to every single iRacing member, it's not the easiest of tracks, believe it or not. There are a couple of tough corners here, like that turn 1 and 2 section, coming down to the brakes into the slow section, the turn 4 and 5. Those are really tricky corners, and in a car such as this that, as you said, wants to go fast around these corners with how much downforce, how light it is, when you're stuck with the slow speed corners and trying to get the power down out of every single one of them, some drivers were struggling with that, and we also saw some drivers struggling with the entry to the corner as well, just starting to get a little bit of a slide on, also tagging the grass on the entry to the corners as well. So as you said, even though it's a base content track, doesn't mean that it's forgiving.
No, it doesn't mean it's forgiving at all. So for the time being, without a driver coming here for an interview, that is all we're going to have time for here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. A big thank you to all of the people who have been watching this at home, all of the drivers, all of the teams. That has been Connor and Maddox to my left. That's been Hugo Louis behind the cameras to my right. I have been #DoYouMindJakeSperry, and well, every single Friday, except the one after the next one, we are going to be here with RaceSpotTV Primetime, the final RaceSpotTV Primetime of the season. We'll be joined with Will Vincent back again with Connery Maddock, so it's my turn to be impeached from the commentary booth. But there is still so much more throughout the week on RaceSpotTV and on the iRacing service itself. You can catch that out on iRacingLive. A big thank you also to our partners and Wern Designs, our official graphics partner. You can also talk about Istvan Balog and his camera packs for gourmets. And also you talk about Appgeneer and ATVO. Well, Tim Bertie will take a huge leap to the championship, and he looks almost insurmountable from a driver who just knows how to drive at the very limits of his actions. Good night.